all the women who lost their male partners to red pill content? Front and center, please. Because I want to know what happened. I want to know how he started off when y'all got together and how red pill content changed him and how the partnership ended. What did that look like? And I also want to know, how did it feel to lose somebody you thought you knew to something as trivial and shallow as red pill content?
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we'll discuss how a woman is angry with the red pill movement because her simp left the friend zone where she had placed him. We'll also see how women are aging faster due to modern stress, with a 25-year-old looking like she's 35. Plus, we'll hear a woman talk about male privilege and how women's hypergamy is making them unhappy. Show your support by smashing that like button and join the channel by subscribing. Add some love to the movement. This is the only contribution we ask of you, brother. Share your experiences in the comments to guide other men. Without further ado, let's get started.
Where are all the women who lost their male partners to red pill content? Because I want to know what happened.
Yeah, I'm right here. I lost one of the loves of my life. One of my best friends, had known him over 20 years since before we were born, to red pill content, and I want to talk about it today. I do think it's important to educate people and keep them aware of this. Well, it was like a 5-10 year long process, so strap in. And I think one of the hardest parts wasn't accepting losing him, but having to accept that, like, this person, these ideologies were inside him the whole time. So his name was Jared. We grew up on streets near each other, and our families knew each other before we were born because we were all homeschooled. So obviously when we were little, I had a big old crush on him because he was the only boy my age I had ever spoken to, but he had no interest in me because he was a little kid. So for a lot of the middle years, he goes back into school. We don't talk. He's in the grade above me. But once we get into high school, we actually reconnect somehow, and I forget how, but I'm a total nerd in high school, and he is like a hockey jock. But he was always a really sweet kid. So for a while, I believed him when he swore his hockey friends must have stolen his phone in the locker room and sent this message to me on Snapchat that said, "Why don't you make yourself useful and send over a pic?" And when I was like, this is really random, like, this doesn't seem like even your verbiage, what's going on, dude? They blocked me on everything on his phone. So we didn't talk for several years after that, and I found it a little bit weird that, like, dude, we were talking every single day, and you didn't even think to look me up and notice I wasn't even in your phone anymore? But anyways, he gets dumped by a girl who absolutely shatters his heart on college, and we actually reconnect because we match on Tinder. And at this point, he is emo, right? He has all the bracelets, he listens to heavy metal, he is very atheist, he has a lot of Satan stars and whatnot. He is the furthest point in the universe from the typical red pill boy. So when he's back in town, we actually go on some dates, and he gets really sick, so I bring him over some soup and like some cookies that my grandma, who I was living with at the time, homemade, and we have some really cute, like, cuddling, watching TV, nothing else sort of dates. And it was just like old times. And then after that, he actually kind of rejects me by ghosting me a little bit, but he wants to remain friends. And I'm fine with that because we were friends our whole life. And the more I get to know about him in that point, the more I realize it's probably for the best, because he's in a lot of therapy at that point, which is very important, because he has such bad anxiety and depression and things like that that he can't even leave his home to go out in public. And also, he's still obsessed with this girl who has blocked him on everything, and he won't tell me why. But one day he says he found her address and he wants to write her a letter because he thinks it'll be super duper romantic and win her back. He had this tendency to do that, right? Like, romanticize all of his actions, when from the outside, like, this girl has blocked you on everything, she has told you not to contact her, and now you're tracking down her address. And I tried to explain to him that that's kind of terrifying behavior, but I don't think he listened to me. I do think he sent the letter, and I don't think anything ever came of it. But at this point, he decides...
Stop it. Get some help.
At what point in the story was this guy red pill? Because to me, he's just a loser, and you've got this simp in the friend zone. The woman in the first video clearly says, who lost a partner because of the red pill. This woman is talking about a male friend with whom she wanted something more, just to make a comparison. This clearly shows when you don't know how to speak on a topic, but want to relate your problem to a popular issue. This guy was a loser, a guy who didn't have the courage to approach this girl, even though it's obvious she had him in the palm of her hand. She says that her friend was the one who sent her that message, but it was probably him. Then, he rejects her because he's pedestaling another woman who clearly doesn't want anything to do with him. But even worse is this woman who continues to chase him. I want you to notice how women pursue the men who are indifferent to them. This is why I always say genuine interest is not negotiable, because clearly this guy is a disaster, yet she still wants something with him. You know, the typical woman who thinks she can fix a man, save him from himself. But let's continue.
He needs to completely change his life. I think his therapist suggested getting into working out, which is the beginning of the slippery slope. So again, he's still in college, living mostly in his parents' basement. He's spending thousands of dollars now on gym equipment and getting really into working out. And watching like male motivational videos, to which I believe around this time too, he decides that he doesn't need to go to therapy anymore. And I was like, no, you still can't really leave your home, dude, and you have a lot of issues. Like, you definitely are not done with that. But again, he thinks that after like a short period of time, he's just completed therapy. And around this time, a couple of his friends ask how we reconnected too, because it's a question to ask. And I jokingly am like, well, we went on a couple dates and Jared rejected me, and he insists that never happened. Like, he refuses to, like, he denies it to his core that he ever rejected me. I was like, it's fine, it's funny, and I'm fine with it. But anyways, we're seeing other people, we're just friends. And around this time is when I met Basement Eric, the one who SA'd me and tried to kidnap me and keep me locked in his basement, right? So that causes a lot of damage. And my brain doesn't trust me to be around boys anymore. So eventually I have to explain to Jared like why I'm always sitting on the opposite side of the room or not really seeing him anymore. And he decides again in his brain, which he has made himself out to be a good person in the scenario and coming from a good place, that he can fix me actually. Because you just didn't get hugged enough as a child and you aren't shown the proper amount of affection. So he starts forcing me to like cuddle with him and hug him even when I tell him no and to stop. And from all the working out, he's becoming a very large man that I can't fight anymore, and so it's starting to get scary when he doesn't listen to me. And he also starts making this frequent joke that we need to go out on like formal friend dates because like I just deserve to be loved and shown love. Which again, I believe came from a good place, but I was like, no, like I've been on real dates. Like I've been on fine dates. It's fine. I've been on a good date before. Like I love you, dude, but you also still refuse to leave your home to go to most places, so it wouldn't work out anyways. So because his behavior towards me is actually making my issues worse at the time, I'm in a lot of intensive therapy myself for this. I have to distance myself or make sure that his other friends are around whenever we're hanging out because he doesn't do any of this stuff in front of his other friends. And an interesting note is now that he's moved home after college, instead of hanging out with his more left friends from college, he's just hanging out with his high school friends that all are on the right. And that starts to really speed up his change in behavior. And around this time, we're both dating and seeing other people, and he never really likes any of my partners, which is fair. I had a lot of duds. But the difference is every time I had a boyfriend, I really wanted to connect him with Jared. Like, I wanted them to be friends because isn't that the goal? He finds a partner, I find a partner, you and your best friend, like we all live happily ever after together. But no, because whenever he got a girlfriend, I was never allowed to meet her, no matter how many times I begged and asked. And also every time he got a girlfriend, of course, she was blonde, my height, and he kind of stopped talking to me when he was dating them. Or at least he stopped forcing me to cuddle him all the time, which was a win for me. Also, the cuddling stuff started again shortly after I started hanging out with him more, but I was able to deal with it then because time had passed. He'd also slowly started using like alpha male, beta male lingo. Like he's hanging out with his gym friends 24/7. They have daily fitness, eating, they have everything mapped out on an Excel spreadsheet. They're constantly on the grind. He's he's leaning into alpha, beta, all that.
This seems more like two toxic people who can't figure out how to relate to each other, rather than anything red pill. First, when he's indifferent to her, she's crazy about him, but when he's ready to go after her, she's no longer interested. So, when she sees her simp is slipping out of the friend zone, she starts looking for him again. As usual, the typical he's right-wing and I'm left-wing excuse to justify their incompetence. This is simply a feminist trying to be with a guy who has traditional thinking. She likes him when he behaves like a man. I've told you many times that instability, anxiety, and uncertainty will always be your best allies. When he makes her feel those emotions, she goes crazy for him. But when he tries to be romantic, she pulls away. It's clear this guy doesn't have money and is trying his best under the circumstances. He still lives in his parents' basement for a reason. Just look at how he reacts when he meets her partners. As she herself admitted, there have been several. He doesn't like it and distances himself. When he has a partner, she insists on knowing who they are and tries to meet them. He probably doesn't want her to, because she will try to sabotage his relationship. She doesn't want to lose her favorite simp. But let's continue.
I'm starting to get increasingly worried, and then he gets a new girlfriend. And this girlfriend is super religious, super conservative, right? And all of a sudden, out of the blue, Jared suddenly is talking about being religious and going to church. And he's going and playing tennis and doing all these things that I've never heard of him doing before. And he's starting to say some of the concerning things he would just let slip when he was one-on-one with me out loud now. I remember our very last FaceTime. He FaceTimed me after he was playing tennis with his girlfriend. I was talking about a date I had gone on, but we didn't really click, and he starts going like, you need a beta male, because you have like an alpha energy. See, I'm an alpha male, so I need like a beta housewife. It's like, I'm just stunned by everything that's coming out of his mouth all of a sudden. And then at some point, I kind of must have made the comment that I was like a little bit concerned about all the conservatives and the things he's been hanging around for him to say this. And he utters the phrase, well, technically, like, voting conservative is the most alpha male thing you can do, right? Because, like, you're voting to suppress minorities and women. You're maintaining your seat at the top. And in that singular moment, all hope in my body left, and I disconnected from the conversation entirely. Did not try to continue to engage. I just made a natural exit. Because also, sir, you are the furthest thing from an alpha male I've ever met. Like, you can barely leave the house, and now this girl has entirely changed your personality. And two, you are Asian. Now, you are half Asian, but if a white right male looked at you, he would say you are Asian. You are the minority that you are saying you're voting to suppress, sir. But I just let it go. I didn't say any of that because I knew in that moment he was too far gone. After that, I no longer took any of his texts and phone calls, and I finally reached out to one of his other girl friends to ask if he had ever done any of this to her, because he always insisted to me, like, cuddling and whatnot is just what friends do. Like, it's totally normal. She said that was weird. She said that she had never seen him act that way to her before. Like, I don't know why, but he was only doing this stuff to me. After I got that confirmation, I sat down and I wrote a thick Google Doc text to send to him, to be very clear as to why I am cutting communication with him. I am terrified of him. I am terrified of his behavior, the man he has grown into. I am disappointed. I lost my best friend, and he's become this person I don't even recognize or feel safe around anymore. I have to just accept that that boy that I shared so much of my life with, that I loved, is completely gone. I'm never gonna get him back, and I think about him all the time, and I feel like a part of me is just gone. And I'm so sorry that I can't let you back. But if you see this, I love you, and I really hope that you get better. I apologize that I couldn't really finish the story, but luckily that's pretty much the end of it, and you guys finally found out, like, the one thing I can't talk about very easily. But also, look, I bought new plants, so yay, new plants, replace men with plants.
Nice kitty. See what I told you? He found a conservative woman with whom he's having a good relationship with a future. She's jealous because she lost her simp. This isn't about the red pill. This is just a guy who went from being a loser to understanding the red pill and became a real man. He stopped letting himself be used as an emotional doormat by her. As she said, he doesn't talk like that with other women, just with her, because she's a feminist and self-identifies that way. She was probably talking to him about all that feminist nonsense. And he told her she needed to find herself an alpha male or a traditional man, a real man. She didn't want to hear that. She wanted him to stay in the friend zone, someone she could see when she was bored, because what she really wanted was to keep trying out other men and have him as her plan B. That's why she never let him be her partner, no matter how much he tried, because all she liked was his attention. Now that she sees she can't get him back, that he won't leave his relationship and has distanced himself from her, she's crying over him. Not because of the red pill, but because of jealousy and envy since he stopped being her plan B. Now I ask you, if the red pill is so bad and she thinks this is the red pill, who ended up better off? Because that man improved his physique, moved out of his parents' basement, found a community, made friends with traditional values, married a woman who shares the same values, got out of therapy, and now has a job and a family. Meanwhile, she's a feminist making TikToks complaining about men, single, crying over her simp in her car, and buying plants to hide her unhappiness. Who ended up better? The results speak for themselves. I'll read your thoughts in the comments.
Somebody recently told me that they thought I was 36 years old.
This might be controversial, but are Gen Z the fastest aging generation? So videos like this have been blowing up on TikTok, resulting in some serious aging anxiety from Gen Zers who are now entering their late 20s. Netizens are saying that it's no surprise that the generation that was raised in the age of social media, which normalized things like cosmetic surgery and Facetune, are now obsessed with anti-aging products, procedures, and trends, which has also already picked up among the youngest of the Gen Zers plus Generation Alpha. A series of TikToks with this viral filter have seriously distorted perceptions of aging and fueled a lot of fear, while social expectations and beauty standards are only making it worse. So are Gen Z actually aging faster? Maybe not. It seems way more likely that it's just social media perpetuating this age anxiety, and because it's nothing new, maybe this generation are just more used to comparing themselves on social media.
Damn!
Women have an obsession with their physical appearance, and this has always been normal throughout history. The issue with the current situation is that now you're not just competing with a girl in your school, university, or community. You're competing with the entire world. This is where women's obsession comes into play. Add to that the filters and phone cameras that distort women's perception of their real beauty, making a woman who's a 4 on the beauty scale believe she's a 7 or 8. The problem arises when they get on social media and encounter women who actually are a 7 to 10 in terms of beauty. Another factor is the stress and the creams or other drugs they're using, along with cosmetic treatments, that make them look older each day. But how could this be solved? I would say by reducing their stress and finding a man who provides security, protection, and stability in a home where she doesn't have to bear the burden of long working hours. She could have time to sleep, hit the gym, and look good for her husband. But to women, this advice is terrible. They'd rather spend thousands of dollars on creams and cosmetic treatments, work long hours to make that money, or sell their dignity on the Blue app. Then, you see happily married women in their 30s, and at the same time, you see the empowered woman of the same age, looking older and unhappier, with a cat. But that's the path of being strong and independent.
Hey Jim, so what is the Red Pill community?
They're groups of men that have basically attributed much of their problems to the women's movement. It's a group of men who are anti-feminist, who really have developed a belief system that women are actually in control of the society and that women hold privilege. And they attribute much of their problems to women. There's a link between the incel movement and the red pill movement. It's based on misogyny, really entitlement. It's unfortunately something that is also linked in lots of different ways to online violence. Some of their platforms on Reddit, for instance, have been banned because it's leading to violence. So basically the red pill movement is groups of men that are projecting their problems onto women as the cause of all of them.
Let me be clear about this. To me, there are two types of movements, those that are extremely radical and those who are simply people looking to improve themselves. In the first group, I've seen creators give some pretty disturbing advice, from promoting a virulent hatred toward women to things like getting a vasectomy in your 20s, which I think is just stupid. I'll give you my definition as I see it. To me, the red pill is like a bulletproof vest against feminism. Feminism used to have a purpose, but today it's just about attacking men for even breathing. For me, the red pill is the path to improving yourself every day to become your best version. It's about working on your body, whether through the gym or a sport, learning martial arts to protect yourself and your family, learning to put yourself first and have self-love, becoming the man who can provide for his family, and being an example for his children. But it's also about setting clear boundaries when establishing a relationship, not letting yourself be manipulated and protecting your assets, not giving away your attention for free, and guarding against modern stimuli that are destroying men. It's about becoming stoic, not being a simp for any woman, and learning how to care for your wife. For me, that's what it means to be a man. Working toward your life's project while having high self-esteem and feeling proud to be a man. How do you define it? I'll read your thoughts.
So unfortunately, right now we live in a society where men are weak. It's why I often talk about masculinity on the show. I'm trying to see what examples men are even following. And I think we all realize now we are facing a crisis. We are facing a crisis of manhood. Not only are men not acting like men in terms of leading their homes responsibly, starting families, making sure that they raise up their children to be strong individuals, but men don't even stand by their words nowadays, right? I remember growing up, my grandfather used to tell me that they could just do deals on a handshake. Well, I'll do this, you'll do that. Shake hands, walk away. And no, just look the man in the eye and know that he meant what he said. You could never do that now. You need contracts, you need lawyers, You need 50,000 pages. And still, after you've signed the 50,000-page lawsuit, it's likely that he might do something to screw you over, him or her, right? Because nobody means what they say anymore. And that's upsetting.
It's undeniable how studies show testosterone levels plummeting day by day, how the rate of men taking their own lives is on the rise, how more men are choosing solitude and isolation, and how men no longer have close friends. It's for reasons like these that I believe in the red pill, in men setting a path for their lives, because this gives life meaning and purpose. Today, there are so many ways for men to fail, from adult content to drugs that are more available than ever. Communities have fallen apart, and young boys are bombarded with ideologies that distort their perception of what it means to be a man. Any display of masculinity is labeled as misogyny. So how can I not believe in a movement that helps men who are on the verge of giving up to get back on track, build healthy bodies, become husbands and great fathers, men who protect and love their nation? Just look at the example from the first video. Going from being a simp for a woman and a loser to having a family, improving his physique, and setting boundaries with a toxic woman who was only using him as an emotional doormat. How can I not believe in this when we see how it changes lives?
Because women are hypergamous, they want males who are of equivalent or higher status than them socially. And the same isn't true in reverse. And so what that seems to indicate is that women, and the data bears this out, by the way, women are not happy if they are associated with a relatively low status partner in comparison to their own status. And what that seems to me to mean is that to some degree, it's incumbent on women to support their husbands to the degree that's possible in achieving and maintaining the status that would make them as women satisfied.
There used to be a famous saying, "Behind every great man is a great woman." This is true, but today, thanks to feminism, women have changed the label to beside every great man is an equally or more successful woman. Does it sound as elegant as the other? No. Women in high-status positions almost always end up alone because for them, a man who earns less isn't even an option. It's as if he doesn't exist. But the problem is that men don't look for a super successful woman because they know she'll be too busy and won't have time for him. As I once said, how do you tell a woman who makes over $100,000 a year to leave her job to have kids? Or if she has them, to stay home and take care of them? She clearly won't do it. Just look at how she wouldn't even give up her Instagram for a good man who would give her everything. That clearly shows where things stand. But it's been proven that women are happier when they are in charge of the household. Not as the provider, but as the one who manages the home. The man takes care of maintaining and providing financially, protecting his woman, while the woman cares for her husband, children, and manages the home. This formula is what makes a nation great. But the current brainwashing by big corporations pushes women to be just like men because they spend more, like the first woman, buying plants to fill the void of having no family, as they're the biggest consumers in a large portion of the workforce.
It's always male privilege this and male privilege that, but there's so much male privilege that 98% of military casualties are men. There's so much male privilege that there's always the caretaker presumption that women are the better caretakers. I mean, really, there's so much privilege in having to fight for your children in court because you're looked at as the lesser parent, even though you want 50-50 and fair share to your children. And there's so much privilege when you're going into court knowing that there's a gender bias. It's always male privilege, but men are never looked at as the primary caretaker and often left out of educational decisions and medical decisions involving their own children. There's so much male privilege that there's not even changing tables in the men's bathroom, but yet society wants men to step up as fathers. There's so much male privilege that he's guilty until proven innocent when it comes to any SA allegations, rape, or any domestic violence claims in court. Men have such male privilege that 68% of the homeless are men. They have such male privilege that they have less legal representation when it comes to court and child support cases. They have such male privilege that there's no shelters, no homes for them being homeless, and they're often denied access to their children because of housing situations. I mean, there's such male privilege that they have to take on the more extensive roles when it comes to the workforce, and 92% of fatalities in the workplace are also men. And it's interesting that male privilege is only spoken about by women that want to use it so they can flip it and play victim and invalidate a man's experience, while simultaneously preaching that everyone matters and we all have feelings and everything's valid. Oh, unless it has to do with a man and his privilege. Okay, bye.
And then people wonder why so many men follow the red pill, when we clearly live in a matriarchal society that hits us every day with laws against men. They forget to mention that men are forced to pay more permanent alimony, and that men lose 90% of divorces. Men between the ages of 55 and 60 often don't even have a home because the woman took everything in the divorce. When you hear all of this, they still talk about the so-called privilege we have, which is nothing more than being cannon fodder in a war. Because in that, yes, we have the greatest privilege. That's when you understand why more men are waking up every day, learning how to navigate their life paths, and ensuring they don't fail in a system designed for them to do so. So, as I always say, focus on yourself, take care of your life's path, be a good man, because this nation needs you now more than ever. We've reached the end of the video, but before we go, the questions are for you. What do you think about the story of the first woman? Was it the red pill that made her lose her friend? What is the red pill to you? How do you define it? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to create more content. Stay tuned for the next exciting video from The Wall.